I'm very happy to have tonight two of the school board members here. Chairman of our school board is here. Glad to have him, as well as another member, and we're just to hear about what's going on around the country. Now I'm going to have Sonia Swan. I'm in trouble with words tonight. So if you'd come up and introduce Emily, we'd appreciate it very much.
So much. Thank you, Gerald. And Emily and I drove up here from Polk County, and I can say that this is a very big group, so I think that I'm going to go back and tell Polk County we need to have food at every meeting. Because this is great. So Emily and I still can't figure out how we first met. I ran for the House in 2020, and I run a group called Iowans for Informed Consent, and it may be through there that we met. But I remember getting a Facebook message from her. It said, hey, I'm going to go protest outside of the Department of Public Health. Would you come with me? And because, we do rallies at the Capitol, and we brought in the America's Frontline Doctors, we believe in civil action, I said yes. And it was cold, and there was about 10 of us maybe at the most. And it was Emily's first time to actually stand up, hold signs, and do some kind of a protest. And I watched this young lady from a mama fighting for her child because her child was being injured by the masks at school. And she was standing up for her baby. And I watched her go from that injured mama bear who has an injured cub to this amazing leader who now speaks all over the United States, and she tours, and she encourages people that local action can have national impact. And this from one beginning time when we stood out in the freezing cold, and we were actually at the wrong building that we figured out later. But it all worked out good, right? And so I just think she is amazing. She is a faith-filled sister. And I hope you give her your full attention. I'd like to introduce to you Emily Peterson.
I just want to start by saying my heart was touched, Representative Bradley, by what you said, because my father, he too was supposed to be aborted. And his mother had every reason to do so. And we just found her this last year. And so it means a lot, One life isn't just one life, it's generations of lives. It's a ripple effect. So I too am 100% pro-life, and I really appreciate your story and your heart. I just want to say also that I felt like I'm amongst family here. You opened in prayer. That is honestly how I live my life, is through prayer. And so when you opened with prayer, I was like, I just feel like I'm home, really. And that's how I started my journey, honestly, and how I was able to continue on my journey that I'm still on is with God's help, because we see that this is not just any old battle. It's a spiritual battle for the hearts, minds, and souls of our children. And so we're in it together. And my path is exemplified, actually, by your podium message right here, which is, don't just join the GOP, make an impact. And now, as Sonia said, my impact is national. It started local. So locally, in Ankeny, Iowa, my daughter has special needs. She attended 3rd grade at the time. She has sensory processing issues. Anyone know what that is? Okay, so those torture devices on your face with a mask feel absolutely horrible. She could not breathe. She could not focus. Her learning plummeted. Every day she would come home crying to me, Mom, please don't make me go back to school. And that broke my heart because she was a child that loves school. She loves to be around her friends, her peers, her teachers. She thrived. And I thought, okay, Lord, this is not just wrong, it's harmful, and I called it out for what it was. It's child abuse. It is. It's child abuse. Because not only physically with face rashes, I've seen countless face rashes on children who were forced to wear these masks 7.5, 8 hours a day. But it's also psychological trauma as well, which my daughter still suffers from. She developed an attachment disorder where she had to be around me 24/7. She needed to know that she was in a safe place. And so that is where it began. But it didn't stop there, because I knew that this would continue and I wasn't going to let that happen to my daughter. I began protesting before the school boards on March 21st, out in the cold. It was another cold day, actually, March 21st, in front of the Ankeny School. And I spoke out at the school board meeting. They did not like that. They did not want to be questioned about what they were doing. And I began to learn that the superintendent would not work with me. So even though my daughter had special needs, and to me she should be accommodated according to those special needs in her IEP, not to have to wear a mask, he was not going to budge for me. He was not going to work with me. I turned in a religious exemption 1 week later. The day I turned in that religious exemption, March 31st, my daughter was immediately placed behind a plexiglass barrier wall 3 feet high, and she was pushed away, isolated from any teacher, associate, student. She would not be able to play with friends at recess. She had like a little circle. Lunch was by herself, and that was just it. I thought, okay, Lord, you've got to make a way for me to do something about this. And that is when the Health and Freedom Conference came about. I was not supposed to be down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The tickets were sold out. I was just wanting to meet a doctor who didn't think I was crazy, who would tell me, you know what, these masks do harm children in many different ways. But that's not what happened. What happened was I spoke to Dr. Meehan's wife, Kathy Meehan, and she said, I would love you to meet my husband. He speaks about the harms of masks. Little did I know that he was the quote that I had on our website that talked about how children in masks feel like they're not in school, but they're in hell. So anyways, that started it. And she said, I want you to meet my husband. He's going to speak. Stand right down here by the stage. So there's about 5,000 people at this event. And he said halfway through his speech, well, there's 2 moms from Iowa here and they have a story to tell. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, he's talking about me. Okay, Lord, here we go. So I got up on the stage and prayerfully was like, okay, just give me the words you want me to say. And after that, I received thousands of messages, communications from parents all across this country, begging for help, pleading, saying, my child's suffering too. What can we do about this? And I thought, okay, we've got 2 weeks left before the school year's out, Lord. Align me with the right people. And you know what, Iowa, we are so blessed to have the leaders we have in our chambers. Senator Carlin, fearless and courageous, fighting for the children of Iowa. Representative Jeff Shipley, fighting for the children of Iowa. Eddie Andrews, fighting for the children of Iowa. And Representative Bradley right there, he even attended our meeting with the doctors too, talking about just the different treatments that were going on and the problems with COVID response. So yes, he too. And we are so blessed because other states, I don't know if we could have got this done, but they helped me, and Sonia and Oliver. We all met at the Capitol. It was May 19th, and we held a rally, and we held a sit-in, and we wrote 140 handwritten letters to the governor, and 220 plus in attendance. And it was that very day that the legislation was signed. It was voted on. I believe it passed 52 to 34. Is that maybe correct? Somewhere along those lines? So by a wide margin, right? And the governor's all ready to sign the bill, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to get in her office. I want to meet the governor. So graciously, Eddie Andrews led us through, and 12:30 a.m., that was the first time she'd ever signed a bill that early in the morning, ever. And I'll never forget her words. She gave me a high five, and she said, you did this. Do you understand that? Your efforts did this. And I thought in my heart, no, God did this, and the people of Iowa did this. It's exactly right. We together, we the people are the government. We've got to be the government. We have to be the ones in the legislators' ears as constituents saying our needs, our wants, our pursuit for freedoms right now, especially. So I just wanted to highlight some of those people. And I also want to recognize that all of this is a spiritual battle. I think we can see it. I think we can see the deception that we're falling under as Americans, some of us, but I thank the Lord that there's many of us who have the discernment right now to see through the deception, because it is a war. It's a war for the hearts and minds and souls of our children, and we are not going to give them over without a fight. But who's the enemy in all of this, right? I was pretty upset when that happened to my daughter. I was pretty hurt that these teachers and these school board members were not listening to me, right? But we are in a greater battle, and we know that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities of the darkness in the heavenlies. So it's going to take the weapons, not of physical warfare, but of spiritual warfare. Putting on the full armor of God, standing in the Lord, being courageous, being fearless, knowing it's not our power, not by might, but by the Spirit of God that things are going to get done, and submitting to his plan. So like I said, there's a lot of brainwashing. We can see it, but we have great discernment. And it reminds me of a man that I started to study that was alive during the Holocaust. Anyone heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Okay. I studied him because he had to rise up in the face of evil. And what was happening to children all across this country, I knew God wanted to deliver the children from this. And now millions in Iowa are delivered. Even back in May 20th, 2021, they were delivered. And he says this: silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God will not hold us guiltless. So whether we do the smallest step forward or a giant leap, he's calling you to do something. We cannot stay silent. We're not the silent majority anymore, because it's a war for the children, and we're going to win it. So as this new world system is seeking to consume our children and this next generation, we would be wise to learn from the men and the people that came before us and the women. Anyone heard of the story Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Okay, so they were told by Nebuchadnezzar, now I'm going to play music in the center square, and everyone's going to gather, right? And when I play this music, everyone's going to bow down. Everyone's going to bow down. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew in their hearts what they were going to purpose to do beforehand. So the music plays, everyone's bowing down. We can kind of see it today. I can see it today. You must submit, you must comply, you must do what the government says to do, even if it's against God's law, even if it's against what we know in our hearts is wrong. Okay? So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't face mandates, they faced death. And so at the sound of the music, they did not bow. And so Nebuchadnezzar thought, well, these men are foolish. I'll give them one more shot. And so the music plays again, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say, we will not bow to your God. Our God will deliver us. And I believe God's going to deliver us. And even if he doesn't deliver us, we still will not bow to your God. And what did God do? He delivered them in the fire. And I believe we're in the fire right now. Our children are in the fire. So we need the Lord's help in that fire. And as I look at the message on this table, this is beautiful. I want to read it. It says, faith is how we walk. Hope is how we talk. Love is how we live. You are the salt of the earth. To hold back the evil, to renew, to take part in the healing of the world. And there needs to be much healing of our children's hearts, right? And we're going to be the ones to do that. So we've got to hold the line. We can never give up. And part of that fight is knowing the truth. And I know that some of the things I'm going to say right now are going to be a little hard to hear. And I want to thank all of the school board members that were mentioned and teachers. Thank you. Thank you for being there on the front lines with our children, to be a light to them, to be love to them in this difficult time. I really appreciate it. So part of our fight is like nationwide, right? It's Disney. You guys know what's happening with Disney, right? The grooming of children, the sexualization of children, the inappropriate material being put out with transgenderism and LGBTQ getting involved. So Disney is one. Another source that it's coming from is called amaze.org. Raise your hand if you've heard of amaze.org. Thank you. Anyone? Good. Okay. So please write this down if you have pencil and paper. I really want you to go and look what amaze.org is. Amaze.org is a cartoon, and it is geared towards children. However, the content is completely adult. It is transgenderism, it is pansexualism, it is non-binary, it is homosexuality, but it's geared towards, honestly, little children, down to the age of preschool, we're talking. And these videos make it entertaining to watch. They make it just like, you're turning on, the latest Disney show, whatever that may be. I don't even know what they are lately because I have older ones and my youngest doesn't watch Disney. But whatever those Disney shows are, they gear it just like that. So I want you to check it out and I want you to be aware of it because they are gearing it towards children. Right now there are over 220,000 subscribers all over the United States to this channel, and it's growing by the minute. Part of this also is the DEI platform, diversity of equity and inclusion. Anyone heard of it? Okay. So what it is, it's the disguise of CRT. So it's really CRT, but they call it Diversity of Equity Inclusion, or SEL, Social Emotional Learning. And by admission from these teachers and staff, it is their way of diverting the law. So they know they're doing it. There's an interview out right now on YouTube. You can see it all over the place. We have teachers, I believe, from Urbandale, Waukee, Johnston, admitting we don't have to follow the law. We're going to teach CRT anyways. We just won't call it CRT. And you know what? There's no one to stop us because there's no teeth in the bill that was passed. So we don't need to follow the law. Yep. And so I'm not saying it's happening here, but I want to make every Iowan aware that in Iowa, it is happening. And DEI is happening in many of the schools. Part of that DEI platform was adopted as a prerequisite to receive what's called ESSER 3 funds. It's coronavirus relief money. Ankeny alone was $1,877,000, and that's just the third rounds of funds. So what they do is they say, you can receive this government funding federally, right? But now the third round, unlike the first and second round, now we tie it to prerequisites that you have to adopt. And one of those is the DEI platform in your schools. What does that have to do with coronavirus relief? Nothing. It's exactly right. Nothing. I want to encourage all of you to please get involved. Go to your school boards. I am thankful that there's wonderful school board members here, but also as parents, we need to be a voice for our children, just to be the watchdog. Even when things are great, be a watchdog. I know Des Moines has it a lot worse. Other areas have it a lot worse than you do. But it is important to get involved so that we can make sure that this doesn't come into our schools if it's not in there now. Another way to get involved is to go to FACL training, FACL. I am Foundations for... The Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership. Very good. How to make your legislator listen to you, in a way. How to make a difference with your legislators. And I took the training and I'm so thankful I did. There's also candidate training for those who want to be a candidate for the first time as well. We'll have information on that over there for you and talk to you about that if you want to. But last but not least, I just want to leave with, do we really have true freedom? We're all fighting for freedom, right, for our children? But do we really have true freedom if we don't have the truth? We don't. God said to us that you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So even though some of these things are really hard to hear, and believe me, I understand that, it's important to face the reality that they do exist and they are happening, okay? So that we can really give our children true freedom, and we can pass on that torch to the next generation. It was Reagan who said that freedom isn't passed through in the bloodstream, right? We have to fight for it, and it's only one generation away from being extinct. And I think we can see that now. But together, I really believe we can make a difference and we can save the next generation. God bless all of you. Yes. One way you can get involved right now is to join Iowa Stands United. Sonia Swan and myself have started a grassroots effort backed by General Flynn, actually. We're kind of talking to him about the beginning stages of it, and we're very excited. General Flynn has become a mentor of mine. He's like family. So I really believe that with his help and a lot of wisdom, we can get this off the ground. We probably have, I don't know, between 6 to 8,000 people and growing, maybe more. But we want to be able to go into our counties and have a grassroots army of around 1,200 per county, so that when we want to get the rhinos out, those who are not responding to our calls for freedom, for example, that they can be put on notice to please vote in the way that the constituents want you to vote. So that's kind of our efforts. It's all about freedom, all about our children, and we'd love you to sign up over there. You can get emails from us. That would be great. And I'd love to take any questions that you may have, if you have any.
Shirley, there's got to be a question out there.
Yes, sir.
Have you been working with the governor on the education scholarship accounts that would give people a better... Have you been... Damn thing work? Well, that figured. Anyhow, the governor has been pushing educational scholarship accounts, I believe is the term, allowing the tax money to follow the student. Have you been working to get that through the legislature?
Lately, I've been talking to legislators about it, definitely. The governor has her cards a little bit stacked against her because I believe some people in the House that are supposed to be listening to the constituents around them are not, and they're not voting. They're holding things up for some reason. Directly with the governor as of right now, no. However, I do have a meeting possibly set up with her in the very near future, and it's going to encompass a lot of different things that I have concerns about, and that is one of them for sure.
I live in Lynn County, and I know parents there are interested in it in the Linn-Mar district.
Definitely. We're going to talk about that actually when I hope to meet with her. That district specifically, what parents can do. I really believe what parents in that district should do right now is to get a class action lawsuit together and to get it together now. That's what they need to do. Get a good lawyer. Martin Cannon is an amazing lawyer here in Iowa. So is Alan Ostergren. You can write those two down if you want to pass on their names. Alan Ostergren and Martin Cannon, two amazing lawyers who are freedom fighters who may take their case.
Another question.
So it's not, how did your daughter respond when you could tell her the good news of May 21st last year?
Thank you for asking. She cried. She was so happy. My daughter is a very happy little girl, and I see the joy coming back. But it wasn't just her. It was like realizing that everyone around her got to be free too. I think she was actually probably just as happy for them being mask-free as she was for herself. And getting to walk into that school like a normal child again, I have video of it. We were laughing and skipping, and yeah, it was amazing. I did get a response from a few parents saying it was their child's best day of school ever. So that was something that brought a tear to my eye for sure.
In terms of materials that are printed materials, whether they be books or textbooks in regards to even math, we're hearing that they've got some really CRT stuff. You want to comment on that?
Yep, absolutely. I just met with our board president today, and I won't give you all of the details because they may not want it shared, but thankfully on November 2nd, because of our actions, we got 6 seats overturned in Ankeny. They were targeting us. We got 2 city council, 3 school board member, and a mayor. And what my advice would be is you need to make sure that your school board members are the ones you want elected. They're essential. They're huge. They're the watchdog of your superintendent is what they are. So if your superintendent isn't doing their job, they can possibly put the pressure on them to leave, whoever that may be. And part of curriculum is getting those school board members in there that will pay attention to it and understand we have a long game, right? This isn't just going to be done in a year. This is a long-term problem. And so getting those school board members in there that will pay attention, will get involved with curriculum. You can also go to your school and demand to see the curriculum and sit there and take pictures. Go through the material. They'll have someone watch you most likely. But you can sit there and go through the materials and you can take pictures so that you can expose things. Part of my journey too is exposing things. The Lord says, have no company with the fruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. So what we did over and over is we just exposed what they were doing. So I think exposure is one. And two, get your school board members in there. Get active in your community. In Ankeny, we had a historic turnout. It was incredible on November 2nd.
Unfortunately, a lot of these books are put out by companies, and there's no alternative for our school boards or curriculum directors. Is that true?
Yes, partially, but we as parents, if we present that we do not want our child reading a certain book, or we have the lists of books, I really believe that it's the parents' right to say, I don't want my child exposed to this book. They will not check them out. They will not be assigned assignments based on those reading materials, and get other parents involved. So there's power in numbers, right? So instead of bringing 1 or 2, bring 10, bring 15. All the parents having the same concern, you can even bring a certain teacher's name into it. If there's a teacher instructing with certain books that you disagree with, such as Gender Queer, which is in the Ankeny Library until this year. It was removed, thankfully. But if you have a problem with that, come in numbers with the same issue, whether it be a teacher, whether it be a principal, and let your grievances be known. And then document. I would video record everything that you can. Document everything. If you don't document, it didn't happen. So you need to document. They don't like me so much. That's okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. They are. They are. Go ahead.
Could you comment on President Biden's statement yesterday to a group of teachers about where he indicated that once the children are in class, the children belong to the teachers only and do not belong to the parents anymore, and where all that whole initiative is going in regards to making your children's wards of the state?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Part of that, you can see it in the ESSER 3 funding. So follow the money, right? So the ESSER 3 funds is directly tied to DEI, which is directly tied to the National Sex Education Standards. Please look that up. I don't have a copy right here right now, and I'm not going to say what's in it, except for we're teaching sexual orientation down to kindergarten age. I won't say the other explicit sexually charged language that's in there, but it's horrible. And it's happening all over America. 40% of our schools across America have already adopted these national sex education standards without parental consent and without parental knowledge. So it starts there. Follow the money. We have to understand DEI was a prerequisite. SEL, social emotional learning. Now, part of that is to bring federally appointed counselors into your schools so that if your child feels like a boy who was born a girl, then they can help get them to the right counseling, to the right doctor, to the right medication maybe. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, so follow the money. And we have to understand that no, our children are ours. And to me, if it takes pulling our children out of school, which I homeschool my older 3, I can't imagine right now having my older 3 in the Ankeny high schools. I just can't do it. My heart goes out to those mamas who have their kids there now, because it is difficult. It's getting changed around, but it's difficult. They had flags up of transgender in their open public areas of school. Thankfully, our superintendent agreed to take them down, and our board agreed, nope, they have to be taken down. And the American flag was taken down. Now that's back up. But it's going to take us speaking out. We have to show up. We got to show up. No more keyboard warrior. I mean, that's great that we have opinions behind our, social media can be a good thing. But we've got to show up in peace, but assertiveness, that these are our children and they don't belong to the government. They belong to us and to God.
One more question.
I don't need the microphone, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. God bless you for everything you've done for all of us and for those future generations yet to be born.
Amen.
Two things. One, the thing I experienced even going through college when I graduated in 16 is a lot of these books that ramming down the throats of the kids are not charged to the school districts. They're given for free, and But two, the way to stop it, and I want to know if there's a way to get this done, is to abolish the Federal Department of Education.
Woo! Great idea. My school board president just told me today that we shouldn't have that Department of Education federally. It should not exist. I agree. How to abolish that? Wow, I don't know, an act of God and a lot of activism across the country in every single state. Maybe a lot of states calling for that. Maybe governors like DeSantis and Reynolds standing up and having a backbone and saying, no, you're not going to do this to our children. You're not going to do it. We're not okay with it. And if you keep crossing the line to where you said that's where they come from, we don't need that anymore. We don't need that organization. It's done. Yes, ma'am?
I've become aware of the CDC being involved
Yes.
in curriculum.
You're right, ma'am.
And www, you tell me.
Yes, ma'am. The CDC is becoming involved, and they're trying to introduce educating the whole child. Yes. Okay. But the thing is, they don't stop there. It goes down to the daycare level now. We're talking 18 months old with LGBTQ curriculum taught in kindercare specifically, that daycare, and several others. So if I were you and you have grandbabies or you have babies in the daycares, I would look and see their curriculum. I would ask to see their curriculum because they have one. They do. I'm not saying it's LGBTQ, but they have a curriculum, and you can check into it. So definitely, and yes, the CDC is doing that, and it's all about DEI. It's all about division, dividing the country according to race. Yes, yes, and the systematic racism pushed and the transgenderism onto our children so that they confuse their minds, and the CDC has a lot of power and a lot of money, but we do too. We've got power. And they don't have our guns.
One last one.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so blessed to be here.
And I wanted to tell you that I have a grandson that is in the special needs as you have stated. And he went through the same thing. But he, in his glory, was not embarrassed that he didn't have to wear a mask. But that day that the kids came back without their mask, he had his friends back. Yes. That's what was important to him. So I would also like to know, several of us have been going to our high school, to the school board meetings.
Yes.
And they talk about curriculum, but we don't understand what curriculum they're talking about. Is there a way to, or a place to go? Is it on your website on expanding our knowledge on different curriculums and what they're saying they're using?
That's a great question. Right now, I'm kind of in transition. I'm going to be coming up with a website. I do have someone helping me along this journey, and I'm kind of transitioning and moving into maybe a more national reach. However, I would be happy by email to answer any of those questions, to lay it out for you, and to provide help in that way until there is a website that you can go to. As far as curriculum goes, every school has a curriculum director who's in charge of the curriculum. Whether they tell you they have one or not, they do. They're in charge. And every parent's right is to view that curriculum. We have to know our rights. If they say, oh, you can just view it online, or, oh, it's this general framework, I've heard it all. No, we as a parent have the right to sit down, piece through that curriculum, take pictures, and do what we want with those pictures, and let people know the truth about what's in those books. And that is what I would do. You're welcome. I'm happy for your grandson.
I want to thank you so much for sharing with us all of this information. Education has changed a lot in the last 5 years. And for you folks that are on the school board, I really pray for you, because this is a big job.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm originally from Dubuque. I was born and raised in Bankston. And I only went to school until I was 13 years old, so I'm not really up on all this stuff. But I wanted to tell you that I want everybody to boycott sample of stone. And they picked my sample for the first phase of Disney World. And I had my name carved all over there. Finally, they said, stop it, your name's everywhere. But I used to support Disney, but now I want everybody to boycott them for what, and I'd like to speak on that a little bit, please.
Sure. You want me to talk about about Disney a little bit more? Sure. This goes back a little ways. So about 4 years ago, I really felt God laying it on my heart to start looking into some things. And one of the things that I looked into was Disney 4 years ago. There have been many arrests that we're not aware of as part of Disney World. A lot of the arrests are about child crimes. That includes some of the top leadership at Disney that has been under the rug because the media will not give attention to it. Probably because Disney is in with the mainstream media. They fund each other. They live off the same, flow of cash, the money. And it's terrible. I mean, Disney also has some films that have some hidden messages in them that we're maybe not aware of until now. I would encourage you to go back and look at some of those former films and see if there's some of those hidden messages in there, and then be very careful what you allow your children to watch. Disney Plus, not good. A lot of those children in those shows have come out and said, I was groomed, I was harmed. They let my parents hand me over to handlers and people that had no business in my life because they harmed me. So I would encourage you not to have Disney Plus on your television set either.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming. I know you've got to get back tonight yet, so you're going to be leaving before long, but you'll be around for a little while afterwards to answer some additional questions.
Sure.
So your table is where? You're going to be right here?
Can I say a quick prayer really quick?
Sure.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Father, we come before you with thanks, God, that you hear our cries. You hear our children's cries, Lord. I thank you for every person here, Lord, that you're moving people's hearts and minds, God, to do your will. Lord, to take that next step, God. I pray that you would show each and every person what that is, Lord. I thank you, God, that you gave courage to our founding fathers, Lord. The same courage, God, that we need right now. Because we know, Lord, that we are born for such a time as this. I thank you for every person here, every child, Lord, that has been given to them. Help us to be good stewards of their hearts, their minds, their souls, God, doing your will and being lights to this world. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Emily. Let's give her a hand for delivering the message this evening. As we started earlier, I made the comment about the 7 or 8 areas that they're coming after us, so there's never a shot fired. We need to do what we can to stop that, and education is just one of many areas.